Hello and welcome, and hello particularly to Eileen Taylor from GoLexia.
Good morning, Guy.
Hi, and thank you so much for being here. And what we're going to do today in this exciting interview is talk about the story of GoLexia. GoLexia are the South Wales dyslexia service. And I have the good fortune to be related to Eileen by marriage. And she has employed me through the years recently to work for GoLexia. And that is a wonderful thing for me. So the reason why we're here today is because I thought it'd be really interesting for Eileen to share how she set up GoLexia and a bit about what it does and a bit about her story. So normally at this point, I would have entered into a long introduction about Eileen's background and her wonderful experiences, but that would undermine the whole point of this experience. So I'm going to leave it to Eileen. So Eileen, tell us all, how did GoLexia come about?
Right, it came about over a long period of time in a way. I started teaching in 1973, having been trained in an era where anybody with special educational needs was shipped out to a special school. There was no such thing as provision in a mainstream school in those days. I've taught in every age range from infants up to university. I had several years where I worked in industry when I left London and came back to South Wales. And I decided that staying in education all the time was fantastic. However, it didn't give you a decent perception of the real world. So, you know, having taught for a number of years, I had no idea what went on outside of education, what went on in the real workplace, if you like. So I did work as a sales administrator for a number of years. I went back to teaching and got interested in speech and language difficulties, and ended up being an advisory teacher with a service, if you like, that helped children who had specific language impairment. That got me interested in why a lot of the children that we were supporting also had issues with literacy. So having already done a master's in special needs, I then embarked on a postgrad diploma in specific learning difficulties to find out as much as I could about it. Long story short, a couple of years later, still as head of that service, a job was advertised at the university in Newport to be in charge of the Masters in Special Needs with specific responsibility for that particular course. And I was lucky enough to get that post. So I was teaching people at master's level to do what I now do today. And gradually it became apparent that the services offered by education authorities had started off really, really efficient and really well spread. But from the comments that my students were making, most of whom were teachers, it was beginning to tail off because of budget cuts. And then my son was studying for a degree at the same university, much to his chagrin. He didn't want to know anything about me being there. Thank you very much. Typical late teenage. But then he came to me one day and said, "Mum, for my final piece, I have to brand a new company. What am I going to do?" And I jokingly said, "Brand me. Pretend I'm a company." I was still supporting one or two children who were dyslexic because I needed to in order to keep up my professional accreditation. So I was doing that after work, a couple of evenings a week. So we got our heads together and tried out a few names and brand identities, if you like. He put these to his mates who were also studying graphic design, and between us we came up with the name GoLexia. We wanted it to be positive, hence the word go and the green. It's a Pantone apparently, the green. So that all got set up for his final piece for his degree. And meanwhile, word was spreading a bit about me supporting pupils after school, and got to the point where it was pretty exhausting. I was lecturing all day, sometimes into the evening, as you well know, Guy, not getting home till 9:30 at night, and then a few evenings a week teaching in my spare time, such as it was. There came the opportunity, when the university amalgamated with another one, to apply for voluntary severance with a year's full pay, which I did, and I got told, you'll never get it, there are only 4 of us in the department. But lo and behold, I did get it. And I took that as a sign that this was meant to be. I had taken several risks throughout my career, leaping, you know, with faith and hoping that I would land in the right place. And I thought, this is a time when I need to do that. I was also 60 by then. And so that's what I did. I applied and I got it. So I rented an office. I hired the services of my nephew, and one day a week he would sit in the office with me to answer the phones. We spent a lot of time wondering if the phone would ever ring. However, gradually the phone started to ring. We started to get more interest from people, and I had more on my caseload, so I was popping off every day of the week to support pupils, and then thought, well, hang on, why don't I get Alex trained? He already had a degree, so we enrolled him on the master's course. We got him to do the PG DIP, and he qualified, so he was able to go and support children. And also he then started following me when I did an assessment. We went from, oh, how many assessments a month do you think we could manage? Wouldn't it be great if we had 2? To the point now where both of us are assessing students at 2 universities every week. So that's 8 a week at universities, plus private assessments, and looking for other companies to do this. I've recently assessed a couple of people for the Welsh Government. So we are full on busy, and at the point where another member of staff is about to get her postgrad diploma and will then also be able to assess. We've branched more into assessment, sorry.
I've got to jump in there to give you a breather, because I've got to say, it is a wonderful story, isn't it? Just the personal story for a start, the whole thing about taking leaps of faith and chances. And many people at the tender age of 60 might think, let's just sit back, take my pension, take my severance, you know, sit in the garden and not do very much. Whereas you have, and it's been a few years now, isn't it? I'm sure you won't mind saying, but this was GoLexia's 10th year. So, and you're still going strong and building, isn't it? And I've got to say that it says a huge amount, doesn't it? That, because you don't advertise particularly, do you? You don't see big hoardings everywhere. You don't have a massive social media campaign department doing it. So it's, you know, it's the quality of the service that you deliver. It must be, isn't it, that draws people to you?
I think so. Apart from the universities, most of what we get are referrals from other people who have either used the service or have a friend who has. And we do have some schools who refer to us when parents ask for a diagnostic assessment. Schools can't provide that anymore because, again, of funding cuts. So educational psychologists are now only supposed to observe and advise rather than assess and diagnose. So we do have a number of schools who, when parents want to know what can we do, we want them assessed, will refer them direct to us. And I did do the I'm 60 thing for 1 week. When I left the university, I gave myself a week of gardening and reading books and sitting around, and thought, is this all there is? I love gardening, I love reading, but I can't do it all the time. So I set aside 1 week and said, right, okay, next Monday morning, I'm going to the office and I'm starting all over again. And I've been working full time ever since. And,
yes.
and it's a savior, if you like, because it keeps my brain active. I'm passionate about what I do, and every day is different. It's really varied. So hopefully it's keeping me young.
Yes, it certainly is. I can tell you that for sure. But it's what I also, because I spend a lot of time obviously talking to adults with dyslexia, and what I think is valuable about the experience that you bring to it is the education side. So that's great for young people, isn't it? In schools in particular, and their parents, you know what it's like. And the commercial side as well, that's good for older people who have an assessment, or who go for, because I know you also, GoLexia provides coaching and workplace assessments as well. So it's, you're able to bring your own experience, aren't you, to the benefit of people out there. And often when they come, I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, but I guess when you encounter a lot of them, they're quite stressed, anxious, confused. So your experience must be really beneficial in helping them find their way through what must seem like a maze of the situation.
I think so, because a lot of people don't realise what's on offer, including employers. Employers often don't know that they can get funding support through access to work, to A, have an assessment, and B, put into place any reasonable adjustments that are required by law. A lot of people in the workplace, as you say, by the time we see them, they are very stressed. We usually see them because things have come to a head, rather than right from the beginning. It's a case of, I've been told I'm going to have a written warning if I don't answer 16 calls in 12 minutes and write everything down, for example. I mean, some of the tasks that people are expected to do are probably not humanly possible, and particularly if you are dyslexic. And life has changed so much because of technology, that there are ways and means of doing the job without ever having to put pen to paper that employers are not aware of. So yes, by the time people come to us, they are very often very stressed, very upset. Even when we do an assessment, people will, more mature people will turn up saying, I'm really nervous about this, I didn't sleep last night, worrying about it. So we start by having a little chat and a cup of tea and explaining, look, I'm not going to tell you anything you don't already know. I'm just going to prove it. I'm being a detective and finding evidence to support the fact that these things are happening. And I will be giving you reasons why. And they often then, once they receive the report, we try to have a chat with them about it rather than just thrust a written report at them. They often go through a sort of grieving process because they've known these things all along. It's always been a problem. It's always caused them emotional and mental stress. And for them, it's often a relief to have somebody who seems to fully understand what they're going through, but can tell them these are the reasons why you're going through it.
Yes. And that personal touch is so important, isn't it, to people? Because these are all people, aren't they? It's not it's not machinery. It's people with feelings and experiences and lives. So Let me ask you then about the future. What are your plans for the next 10 years?
To keep going doing this as long as I possibly can. As you probably know, we have to renew our assessment practicing certificate every 3 years. And that up to now has involved doing an assessment, writing a very thorough report, following very exacting guidelines, which we have to follow. There is an overarching body that controls all of this. And that's a very stressful thing in itself, submitting the report. However, because I've already resubmitted, I think 3 times, my 4th one next year might not involve writing a report. I just have to prove some continuing professional development. As long as I'm mentally capable of doing that, I will carry on doing it. My question is, how will I know when I'm not mentally capable of doing that? And I'm hoping that my staff will tell me. They do politely nag me a little about how much I'm doing. And there are weeks when I think, you idiot, you've taken on too much, because it's not just going to do the assessment, it's then having to write the report. So for example, last week I did 7 and then didn't have any free time at all, writing reports all weekend, etc. So I am trying to calm things down a bit and pace myself. In terms of the business, hopefully, you know, as soon as Ira gets her professional qualification and her APC, she can come on board with doing some assessments and building up. We are now a limited company. The plan is to build up so that we branch out into other areas, other geographical areas. We already can offer assessments in the Midlands because I can go up there and stay with my son and do some assessments there. But again, we need more staff, I think. I think that's the sort of the next 10 years. We need to expand in terms of numbers of people who can do assessments, and maybe somebody to do administration, which I do all of at the moment.
Golly. Well, it's wonderful to hear, isn't it, that the future is assured because of your continuing determination and faith. And I think this is a great, you know, it's a point to finish and a point to think on for the future, isn't it? Is that there are people out there who need that personal service, and GoLexia will still be there because the ethos pervades the company, doesn't it? Everyone follows that same belief that the person is at the center of this process, and it's critical that they have a good experience and the right experience.
Absolutely.
So, well, I wish you continued success, and of course, and I think I shall say thank you ever so much, Eileen, for telling us all about GoLexia. And so I wish you the best for the future.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to watch today's video. If you found this video useful, then why not take a look at this one? I'll see you in my next video. Bye for now.